Hello, we've got something slightly different to share with you this week. We're actually going back in time, not forward. We're getting a little retro. We're going back to 2018 when Rob and I had just sailed back with the family from Fiji to New Zealand, and we had two hitchhiking sailors on board. One of them, Rika, was going home really soon after she'd arrived in New Zealand. She wanted to see a little bit of culture, so Rob and the boys went cross-country over to the giant Kauri forests on the west coast. On the east coast, no, the west coast, on the west coast. I don't know my geography, of New Zealand.
What you're about to see is taken from an old episode, 23 in fact, and it was the end of the episode. Now we know a lot of people don't always get to the end of our episodes, which is a bit of a shame because some of the fun stuff can be at the end, like last week.
Gotta get you boom, 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 gotta get you boom, boom, boom.
Or the week before.
When you call me baby, I'll make some time for you.
The reason we are showing you this old episode rehashed with better editing is because of the message. The message is really powerful, and it's about humanity and our role here on planet Earth, really. It's the story of Tane Mahuta, the Kauri tree in New Zealand, the most famous and revered single tree in New Zealand. And we met Department of Conservation worker there, a guy called Conrad, and he told us this message. I'll say no more. I ask you to hang in there. It's quite a long message, but it is particularly, I think, poignant and appropriate in these times, especially the message at the end. Enjoy. So here we are at Tane Mahuta. Beautiful. In order to better understand how this tree has survived for nearly 2,000 years, Conrad from the Department of Conservation shared the King of the Forest's 5 defence mechanisms. It's a long talk, but well worth the listen, so hang in there.
So how scaly the bark on the tree looks for a defence for those 2 vines you can see at the base of the tree. That green vine trying to crawl up, and what happens is little pieces of bark will fall away, and when they fall away they'll sever the stem, and then anything above the severed stem will die off, and it stops the vine from growing all the way up to the top of the tree and suffocating his foliage. And he's also protecting an ecosystem up there in the top of the tree.
He sure is.
So up there in his canopy he's got about 100 different plant species. Grasses, shrubs, orchids, epiphytes, lichen, mosses. There's even a tōtara tree and a pahutakawa tree up there as well.
Oh, really?
And it's the weight of all of the branches, all of the ecosystem, all of that weight pushing down on the trunk is what's causing that diamond crisscross pattern you can see going up and down the tree.
Oh, yeah.
And so when they're young, they grow up in a twist, but you can't see it. And that's because their canopy hasn't developed the weight yet. But, so if you look at that tree over there, that tree's 400 years old, but you can't see any lines or twists in that tree because the canopy's small.
Yeah.
That's when it will push down on the trunk, and that's when all the lines will show up in the tree.
It's amazing.
So if they just grew straight up and down, like a tōtara tree, when the weight developed at the top, it would split the trunk down the middle. So that's why they grow up in a twist. So when the weight developed at the top, they just sit back down on the twist.
It's extraordinary.
Can you see that snap branch over to the left?
Oh, yeah, yep.
And it looks like wood hanging down?
Yep.
So that's not wood, that's Kauri gum. Because they're up there with the storms and the winds, that's what causes the branches to break out. And when they break out, the gum oozes out of the end of the snap. It goes hard. All of that outside jagged wood's going to rot, and it rots all the way until it hits the gum. The gum stops the rot, heals the branch, and then once the branch is healed, he'll grow another branch out of the end of the snap. Look over to the right, you'll see a branch the same thickness as the one that snapped.
Yep.
And it's got a cap on the end of it. And then from the top of that cap growing out to the right is the new branch.
Out of that.
So it doesn't matter if the branches of a Kauri tree snap out, they just heal it up and grow another one. See those bumps going up and down the tree? Those are from when the branches have fallen out, hit the trunk, and gouged out a big wound.
Oh, yeah.
And then it's bled out all of the gum. The gum's gone hard, and it's helped the tree to heal the trunk, so no water or bugs
Can get in,
fungi
yeah,
can
yeah.
get in and eat away at the healthy wood. Those are 4 defences: the scales for the vines, the bumps for the falling branches, the twist for the heavy canopy, and the healing and regrowing of his own branches. They've got one more defence mechanism, and that's up in the top of the tree. Up there they need soil for those 100 different plant species.
Of course.
And it needs to stay wet, and wet soil rots wood. And so what the tree does is produces a big cap of Kauri gum in the top of the tree, and the job of that Kauri gum is to hold all the soil and all the moisture in the top of the tree so it doesn't rot down into the heartwood of the tree and kill the tree.
Oh, okay.
So those are all the defences of a Kauri tree. There's one thing they cannot defend themselves from though, and that's us. And so that's why the boardwalk's here, because his root system is quite shallow, and us just standing on the ground breaks those root systems. And so that's why the boardwalk's here. And now he's got a new threat, which is Kauri dieback disease, and that travels around in the soil and it gets into the tree's root system and it starts to eat away at the tree's roots. And then once all of that's gone, it can't feed itself and it starts to starve to death. And so that's why we keep everybody on the boardwalk and wash everybody's shoes before they come in, so that we can protect our tree from this disease. My favorite part about the tree is his root system, because that's the part of the tree that highlights the respect he has for his environment, and that's because of the balance he's developed with his environment. And so shooting 5 meters deep are their tap roots, and when you think about a tree this big,
Yeah, it's not.
5 meters deep, that's
It's not much, is it? No.
well connected to that root system and up towards the surface is their lateral feeding root system. They go double the width of the canopy, so they go all the way out to that back platform,
Oh, really?
and they go right around the tree. On the end of that are the peg roots. And they're about that thick, and they shoot into the ground 5 meters, and their job is to hold the mat down. But even all of that root system, the peg roots, the lateral roots, and the tap roots are still not enough to hold the tree in the ground. All the weight of all of these other little trees and their roots woven in with his roots, and the weight pushing down on his roots is what's holding him in the ground. So if all of these trees around us were to disappear in the next storm, he comes falling down because the weight of the dirt alone is not heavy enough to hold him in the ground.
Yeah.
And so that's the balance that he's come to within his environment. Even though he's the most dominant tree in the forest, the most dominant tree in the whole country, he doesn't want to dominate too much. That's why they only grow to the height of the secondary canopy. Notice how his trunk stops at the height of all the other trees.
Yeah.
And that's why the branches break out and regrow. Because if he grew really, really,
Too tall?
really tall, shaded everybody else out like an umbrella,
Yeah.
none of his mates will grow. And if none of his mates grow, then in the next big storms, he falls over. And so that's the respect he shows that balance, because he knows without that balance, he can't survive. And so that's the lesson he's trying to send to us as people, because we seem to have lost our balance with the rest of the world. And it's that balance we need to get back, because if we tip the balance, just like Tane without his trees around him, we're going to fall off. And so that's his lesson he's trying to teach us and the rest of the world, and hopefully he's going to send out to the rest of the world.
Ka pai. Yeah, that's the ultimate team, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Teamwork at its best. Working together to support each other. Nice, thank you, bro. Thank you very much. Conrad, thank you. If you enjoyed that episode, how about you give us a thumbs up? Or if you didn't, give us a thumbs down. That's fine too. And leave a comment. That would be great. We read and answer all our comments. We may be a little bit late on this one because we are actually offshore as this goes to air. But we'd love to hear from you, and we will get back to you eventually. Thanks very much.
If you enjoyed this episode, please comment, give us a thumbs up, and best of all, share it. It helps us heaps.
Come